She's gonna be so honked. My final breath is a whoop butt.
Well, it all started when I was at school, enjoying my delicious lunch from El Pollo Loco and Chipotle. I was sitting in the cafeteria, surrounded by my friends, when suddenly I felt a rumbling in my stomach. I knew what was coming, but I tried to hold it in as long as I could.
Wow.
Well, I ran to the nearest bathroom as fast as I could, but it was too late. I couldn't hold it in any longer, and well, it was embarrassing and gross, and I was mortified that my friends might have heard me.
I was eating a delicious meal, and as I finished, I couldn't help but let out a loud, satisfying burp. It was a mix of relief and satisfaction, and it echoed throughout the room. I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in myself for being able to let out such a loud burp. It was Valentine's Day, and I was sitting in a crowded restaurant with my date.
I'm a whoop
We were
butt.
enjoying a delicious meal, when suddenly, I felt a sudden urge to pass gas. I tried to hold it in, but it was too late. A loud, embarrassing fart escaped from my backside. My face turned red as I quickly apologized to my date and the people around us. It was definitely an unforgettable moment, and I vowed to never let that happen again on a special occasion like Valentine's Day.
Wow.
I was sitting with my family at Taco Bell when I suddenly had to let out a big fart. I tried to hold it in, but it was too strong. The whole table went silent, and I could feel everyone staring at me. My mom gave me a look of disgust, and my dad just chuckled. I was so embarrassed, I wanted to crawl under the table and hide. When my stomach hurts, the gas in my stomach gets trapped and becomes more bubbly. This makes it more likely to make a loud noise when I fart. It's not something I can control, and it can be really embarrassing.
Okay, so, I was sitting down in the Waffle House. I was looking through the menu, thinking about what to eat. I was feeling a little gassy, so I farted. It was a pretty loud one, too. The waitress looked at me, but I just smiled and said, "Papa's gotta eat."
I was eating some sandwiches with onions on them, and when I finished, I let out a big fart. It was so loud and smelly that I couldn't help but laugh. My parents were sitting across from me, and they just shook their heads and chuckled. Oh, yeah, I remember that. It was my first time getting a phone, and I was so excited. I was talking to Ashley, my babysitter, on the phone when I let out a huge fart. I was so embarrassed, and I couldn't stop laughing. Ashley started cracking up too, and we ended up talking about it for the rest of the night. It was so funny. Well, it was a hot summer day, and I was at the pool with my friends. We were all having a great time splashing around and playing games. I decided to do a cannonball into the deep end of the pool, and as I jumped in, I let out a big, loud fart. It echoed across the pool, and everyone heard it. I was so embarrassed, but my friends couldn't stop laughing. They teased me for the rest of the day, but I just couldn't stop laughing along with them. Oh, it was definitely a monster fart. I've never let out fart that loud before, and it felt like it lasted forever. I think it was a mix of nerves and excitement that made it so big. My friends were in shock, and I was so embarrassed, but at the same time, it was kind of hilarious. We all laughed about it for days after that. Okay, so there was this one time when I was at the local zoo, and I was playing with the sloth mascot. I was making silly faces, and the sloth mascot was laughing. But then, out of nowhere, the sloth mascot suddenly grabbed me and started force choking me. I was so scared. I tried to break free, but the sloth mascot was too strong. In 10, where did you hear that kind of language?
It's gonna be so awesome.
It's time for bed, instead of him going to kiss you 1 month ago.
What? Why do you want to hear about that? Okay, so I was sitting on the porch one day, enjoying the sunshine, when suddenly I let out a huge fart. It was so loud that it startled a woodpecker named Buzz, who was perched on the tree nearby. He flew away in a panic, and I felt really bad for scaring him. I guess it's a good thing he didn't hear what I had for breakfast.
I'm sorry I can't talk about that. It's too embarrassing. Fine, but you better not laugh. Fine, but you better not laugh. Oh my, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to release such a loud and gassy fart. It just happened out of nowhere. I was caught off guard and gasped, feeling embarrassed and mortified. I quickly apologized and tried to play it off as a harmless accident. You can't just ask someone that. You know how embarrassing that is? I can't believe I'm doing this. Once upon a time, there was a giant boat that carried many people on a long journey. Among them was a
Cow
young lady
and
named Bessie
chicken.
Higginbottom, who was feeling a bit gassy. As she sat down in her seat, she let out a
Super
long,
scooper
loud fart
fun.
that sounded like a duck quacking. It was so embarrassing that she wanted to disappear into thin air. But alas, she had to face the reality of her situation and hope that no one had heard her. Oh man, that's a story. So I was just having a good time on my bed, minding my own business, when suddenly I felt this big fart coming on. I tried to hold it in, but it was too late. It just came out with a bang. And then I heard this voice say, "Well, that's one way to greet a guest." I looked up, and there was Amy Cooler, standing in the doorway, laughing her head off. "Oh, she was cracking up," she said. "You've got quite the greeting party going on here, don't you?" I was so embarrassed, but she was so cool about it. She just came over and gave me a big hug, and we had a good laugh about it. I remember it very clearly. It was the day I watched the trailer for Star Wars, The Force Awakens. I was so excited for the movie, but when I sat down to watch the trailer, I let out a loud fart. I was mortified, but also relieved that I didn't hold it in. I laughed it off and continued watching the trailer, but I couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. My mom was in the room with me when I farted during the trailer. She just gave me a look and said, "Really, Bessie? You had to do that now?" I apologized and tried to laugh it off, but I was still feeling a little embarrassed.
Oh man, that was hilarious. I was stuck in traffic for hours, and the longer I was stuck, the more gas I was holding. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and let out a huge fart. It was so loud that everyone in the car heard it. I was so embarrassed, but my brother and dog just started laughing their heads off. My brother just couldn't stop laughing. He was practically rolling on the floor. He kept making fart noises and pretending to be a dog, which only made Happy bark and laugh even more. It was a complete disaster, but at least we had a good laugh out of it.
You want me to tell you a story about when I farted on the beach? That's a bit specific. Are you sure you don't want to hear something more wholesome? I was at a play date, and we were listening to some kids' music. I was dancing and twerking along, and suddenly, I let out a huge fart. All the other kids started laughing and pointing at me, but I couldn't help but giggle too. It was so embarrassing, but also kind of funny. Oh, the song was the Itsy Bitsy Spider. It's a classic kids song that's perfect for twerking to. Oh.
This is a feeling I am not used to. Well, I was sitting on the couch, watching TV with my family. I was wearing my Christmas pajamas, and I was feeling pretty sleepy. Suddenly, I felt a big rumble in my tummy. I tried to hold it in, but it was too strong. I let out a huge, loud fart. It was so loud that everyone in the room stopped talking and looked at me. I was so embarrassed, I wanted to crawl under a rock. Yeah, it did sound like that. My mom said it sounded like a bass drum. Everyone in the room started laughing, and my dad said it was the best fart he'd ever heard. I was mortified, but I couldn't help but laugh too. It was kind of funny in a way, but I was still really embarrassed. Looks like I have to go potty. Let me think. One time I farted so loudly in class that the whole room went silent. I was so embarrassed. I tried to play it cool and act like nothing happened, but I could feel everyone's eyes on me. I just sat there, trying to hide my face.
Okay, so once upon a time, there was a baby named Bessie. She was known throughout the land for her epic farts. One day, she let out the most legendary fart ever, lasting for a whopping 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The entire kingdom heard it and knew that Bessie was the true height of
Fucking.
She went down in history as the farting champion of the land. The end. Oh Neil, that's amazing. The Chase and Fartis band would be a hit for sure. They would have a huge following, and people would be lining up for miles to see their performances. They would have merchandise, and their music would be played on the radio. Bessie would be their biggest fan, and would dance to their fart music every day. It would be the ultimate dream come true. Ew! I was at school, and I had a bad case of the farts. I couldn't hold it in, and I let out a huge one. It was so loud that everyone in the class turned around and looked at me. I was so embarrassed, but I couldn't help it. Then the teacher came over and asked me if I had a Samsung Galaxy son. I didn't know what she was talking about, but she gave me a free phone anyway. It was the best day of my life. Yes, I did. I said those exact words, and it worked like a charm. Everyone in the class started laughing and smiling, even the teacher. I felt so proud of myself for making everyone happy, and the best part was that I got a free phone out of it. Very sweaty. So I was playing with my friends in the basement, and I accidentally farted. I was so embarrassed
Will not be
that
a
I didn't
swear.
want to talk to anyone for the rest of the day. But my friends were really cool about it, and made me laugh so hard that I forgot all about it. It was a good lesson in not being ashamed of your bodily functions.